Hello and welcome to the Scraptastic Crocheter. My name is Amanda and today I am going to try and show you how I make my Hexi slippers. These are, I made this pattern or made it up myself. I haven't written it down yet, but today I'm gonna show you how I made them with this little tutorial. So these are slippers. You could make them longer around the ankle and more of a sock type, but you have this is what they look like from above. Kind of a fun pattern, especially when you use yarn that has different colors or color changing yarns. Show you like this. If you use the same type of yarn, the pattern is gonna match up if it's similar with the pattern or the yarn. And here's the same type of yarn, just a little bit different in the colors. But I'm gonna show you from the beginning how I made these. I'm gonna be using the same color yarn as I have here. The sizing is really easy, basically starting from the heel, and then you can measure on your foot how long you want the toe to be before you start to decrease and fasten off. This is about a man size, maybe not the largest man foot, but in EU sizing it's about 41 to 43. And this is smaller, as you can tell, more of a medium-sized women foot type. So let's start. I'm gonna tell you here a little bit about the yarn I used in the color changing one, and the yarn I'm gonna be using today. It's called the Raggi from Järbo. You can find it at hobby.com. Not where I found it, but that's where you can find it. It's 70% wool superwash and 30% polyamide. The recommended crochet hook size is 4.5. I'm going to be using a 4mm USG 6 is what it says here on my hook. And this is wash cold, no tumble dry. No fabric softener recommended, and the color is 15-11-5 15115. Yeah, I really like these yarns. They're easy for me to find. I find them at my grocery store, so I guess that's the benefit of being in Sweden when it comes to some Swedish brand yarns. It's made in Turkey, this yarn, but the Järbo company is from Gävle, which is in Sweden. It has a little Swedish flag there, but yeah. Let's get to what I'm going to be using. I'm going to be using a couple of stitch markers. That's optional. I'm going to use it just to show you. I don't necessarily use them when I make them myself. The crochet hook, and I'm gonna start here with a little bit of the yarn. I'm just gonna pull out some, and first I'm just gonna start to make a beginning chain. Don't need a large tail here, but you need enough to fasten it off, but not necessarily a really huge tail. Basically what you need to be able to do is half double crochets, and the little technique that I use to close it together at the end, I will show you exactly all that you need. So but let's start first here with a chain of 4, 3 and 4, and then I'm gonna go into the first stitch and make a slip stitch to start this here. So in the middle, or I'm gonna chain one and go in the middle and make 6 half double crochets. And just for convenience here, I'm gonna put the stitch marker in the first, so it's easy for you to also see what I'm doing. 2, 3, 4. I know this yarn can occasionally be a little bit difficult with splitting, but that's probably more my way of using it rather than anything else. So, and I'm trying to work the yarn tail in a little bit as I crochet here. So where were we? 4, 5, and 6. Okay. I'm not gonna make a slip stitch. What I am going to do is I'm going to continue doing half double crochets, but I'm going to go into the first of my stitches here, and I'm going to make a half double crochet in there next to the stitch marker. And just going to move it out of the way because it can be in the way. So I'm going to turn it around a little bit and just pull that yarn tail in, and then I'm going to make one more half double crochet in the same stitch. It is a little bit fiddly here in the beginning, but it's going to be all fine. So what I have is 6 half double crochets in the first round, and now I'm starting my second round with 2 half double crochets in the first stitch. I'm also gonna place the stitch marker in the second. Can you see that there's 1 stitch and 2 stitches, and I'm gonna place this in the second stitch, or like in between the 2 stitches I just made. And then I'm gonna jump over to the next stitch, and I'm gonna also make 2 half double crochets in the next stitch, 1 and 2, and same here, I'm going to place a stitch marker in the second of these 2, and I'm going to place 2 half double crochets in each stitch for the rest of this row, and placing stitch markers in the second stitch. One, 2, and a stitch marker. One and 2. Stitch marker again. And remember, I put the stitch marker not in the first of the 2 on that I placed over here, so be cautious that you don't go into the first stitch of this round. You see, now I ran out of my 6 markers here. That's one way to know that this last stitch that is here is not my last stitch, but my first stitch from this round. So I'm done with the double or the 2 stitches on this round, and this is my next round, and I'm gonna just place 1 half double crochet in that stitch, and in the next stitch I'm gonna place 2 half double crochets. I moved my stitch marker out of the way, but I am not gonna be done with it yet, so I'm gonna make my 2, and just like before, I'm gonna place it in the second of the 2, and that's what I'm gonna do all the way around this row. I'm gonna go for that 1 in between here where I don't have a stitch marker, and where I have a stitch marker there's gonna be 2. So 2 in this one, and I'm almost done with the tail. I could have dropped it a long time ago. I just don't like having it all over the place. And in the second there, I'm gonna place the stitch marker again. So the distance between the stitch markers will increase from every row. So 1 in the next, and in the next one here, I'm gonna place 2. One, 2, and a stitch marker in there. And if you continue with the stitch markers like this, it's always going to be easy for you to remember where you're going. So no stitch marker, just 1. Stitch markers, 2. And when you have made a little bit of progress, it's going to be pretty easy to actually see where the stitch markers should go. And if you don't like using stitch markers to work with, because it's not really necessary to use them, it's just more of a helpful like getting used to this pattern. So there we have 2, and I'm gonna put it back in there. Oh, that stitch marker was crap. Good thing I have plenty more. Just need to get one. Do you often destroy stitch markers because they're weak and plasticky? This was actually my first of these ones that broke, so 1 in this one, and then the next one here is 2. 1 and 2, and place it in the last one. And when you place stitch markers, it doesn't matter if you only get it in the the front loop or the back loop or both. It's just a marker. It's not there for any purpose other than helping you figure out where to put your stitches. Now we are here where there's, well, this is the first cluster, I guess, that we've been making, and this stitch here is the first stitch of the round. But as I said, where there's a stitch marker, there's gonna be 2 half double crochets, and in the other ones there's gonna be 1. So here we have 2 half double crochets in each of the 2 stitches, and then 2 in the next. So from now on there's gonna be 2 half double crochets after each other and 2 in the same. 1 in this one and 1 in the next, and 2 in the one following that. And if you are familiar to increasing in patterns, you will know that the rows from this continuing like this, it's gonna become now it's 2 in between. On the next row is gonna be 3, and then 4, and then 5 between these small little clusters that I'm making. Well, clusters, you can count them as corners because you're putting two in the same, so it could be looked at as a corner. That this is a piece with 6 corners. So since I have done this multiple times, I don't necessarily move my stitch markers up. You can also place it like I'm doing here in the middle of the 2 stitches from the one round and up to the next, and just keep an eye on the where they are on the previous rows. So I'm gonna just speed up a little bit here so that you will see a little bit more of how it's supposed to look. And just gonna move this again. I don't use stitch markers very often myself. It's not that often I need them, but I figured for this demonstration it's easier for you to see how I am working this pattern. Just gonna place one on either side. Figured maybe that's a bit easier to just crochet it in. Okay, so still 2 in between, 1, 2, and 2 in the same. 1, 2, and 1, 2. Oh, yeah, and here we have 1, 2, 3. We're already back to the beginning. So there's 1, 2, 3. And now we're going to place 2 in this one and 3 in between the corners on this, from now on, this round. I'm going to continue to use the green marker and move it up because that's where my round starts and ends. But the other ones I'm going to just let sit in so that you can see them. They're still there, but I just don't have to move them. So that was the number 3. And here we have a corner. So in here there's 2. 1 and 2. And then we're going for 1, 2, and 3. And a corner with, oh, stitch markers a little bit in the way, but I'll make it work. 1 and 2. 1, 2, 3. New corner, so 1 and 2. And 1, 2, 3. New corner, so here it goes. 2. 1 and 2. 1, 2, 3. And we're at the next corner. 1, 2. And since the green marker is here, that's where we started. This is going to be 4. So Here we have 4 and a quarter. One, 2, and I'm going to remove the stitch marker and place it in the second here again of the 2, and I'm going to continue with 1, 2, 3, 4. And now I can see here that there is 2 from the previous row, so I know that there's supposed to be 2 in the 2. And 1, 2, 3, 4, and 2 in the 2. And this is basically all you do. You keep increasing on every row for as many rows as you need. This piece here is just the beginning of one of these Hexi slippers, socks, call them whatever you want. I'm pretty used to calling them slippers, but if you use a thinner yarn, you can definitely use this pattern to make socks, because the repeat is the same. You just keep increasing the 6 corners. So this is how you start. From there, I'll jump over to the, just like a cooking show, I have prepared, popping out of the oven, I have prepared another slipper here. Here is where I'm at after 20 rounds, and you can see here is the increase lines. It's pretty easy to see them, I think, at least. Here is where my starting chain, so I started here, and I have increased my way all the way up to here on the 20th round. That's the size I'm going for this sock and or slipper sock, potato. But from now on, here is where fun happens. So you can pause the video and continue till you have the amount of rows you need, and I can show you here on this yarn I used is a wool yarn that is a lot finer. It's a thinner yarn. I have it here. I'm just gonna side by side them, compare. You can tell that this yarn is a lot thinner, and therefore I just needed more rows until I got the desired size. And the size you're thinking about, what you want to measure is from the heel up to the foot. So basically you put this on your foot to see if you can close it on top. You don't have to close it fully, because you see here where I seam this up, you get a couple of well, you get a little bit of width there, so it don't need to be totally closable on top, but you need to be pretty close. And if you do have a bigger distance than what the seam is, it's just going to be more snug around your foot. If you are making it so that the distance just is a bit bigger, you get a more snug fit. And if they are really close together already, then you get a loose fit. So it's just whatever you want, whatever feels the best. But to continue from the row I'm on, that was the size I wanted. This is gonna be, let's see, yeah, it's underneath. This is the middle underneath, but I did an increase here in the last it's 2 in the last 2. From now on, I'm gonna go with 1 in each, and it is a bit of a different, or a little bit different here with how many stitches is in between the corners. But I'm going to work my way up to the next corner, and I am gonna place 2 more stitches in that corner, but from there on I am gonna be closing it up. Remember, I said this is the middle underneath the bottom of the slipper, and from the bottom I'm gonna work my way up the side to the front and the middle. So here's where the bottom is, and I'm gonna be seaming this part together. This is where I insert the foot, and here's where I'm gonna be working my toe out. So up the side we go here with a couple of stitches, and of course, depending on how many rows you've increased, the number of stitches here will be different. And it doesn't matter how many rows you work, as long as you try to remember how many you work, just so that you can duplicate this and make this a slipper number 2. So here I'm at the next corner, and I'm gonna be placing 2 in this one like that. And just to make the same amount of stitches as the matching one, I have made a matching one for this already, because I am a cooking show and I've already prepared. I haven't fastened off yet, but I have the other half of this one, and I used 13 stitches to get to where I wanted on this. So I'm not gonna, here's the corner I'm at right now on this one, and here's the next corner. So about 2/3 of the way is where I think I prefer. Of course, you could go all the way up, you could go half, just try it and see what you like. But for me, that is including this one. It's 13 stitches, so another 12, I believe. Yes. 1, 2, and I did still have double crochets. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and that's 12. Was that including the corner or not? I'm gonna do it side by side here, just to see where I'm at. And I'm gonna show you what I like to do. I take something stabby. Okay, I take, here's where my corners are at, and that's a corner, and that's a corner, just to line them up so they don't run away from me. And count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. That's the same. Yeah, and when I hold it up like that, it's the same. I don't know, I like lining stuff up just to see. So where do we go from here? We're gonna turn it around, and here comes the stabby again. Now I need to figure out where that matching stitch is on this side. Okay, and this is the row beneath it. So this row here is the same row as the previous round. That's where we're at. So I need to count 13 from here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. That's where we're going, okay? This is the same stitch as that stitch. Yeah, it looks like the corners are adding up, and it's nice. I'm gonna try and not move that marker. Here is a little bit of a, I don't know if I have seen anything like this seaming technique that I'm using, but first I'm taking my yarn and I'm just putting it down so I have it in front of my hook, and I'm gonna make it a half yarn over, so it's gonna be just like a half double crochet into the stitch that I marked out here so nicely. So I'm gonna do a half double crochet like this, nothing fancy, nothing special. But what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna go into the last stitch here. I'm gonna go in from the back side of it, and I'm gonna catch the yarn. I'm gonna place it over, I'm gonna catch it, and I'm gonna flip it up like this and make a slip stitch. I'm gonna show it to you a couple of times now, just because I'm not sure how to describe it other than showing you. So now I'm gonna do a half double crochet in the next stitch, and I'm gonna go from the back side of the other round, and I'm gonna go for the next stitch. I'm gonna catch the yarn and pull it through, slip stitch, and then a half double crochet in the next stitch. So same again, going down here from underneath or below, go through, pick up the yarn, make a loop, and then pull through the other loop that I had. Half double crochet on this side again, and again, pull it through, slip stitch, and half double. From below, pick the yarn up, slip stitch, half double in the row I'm working on. And this seaming technique makes a little like braid type pattern on the front, which I adore. That's why I'm doing it this way, because this seam just makes it a little extra. Like even if you had a like one color yarn, no fancy switching color yarn or whatever like that, you will get some detail that is a bit not over the top. It's just perfect. So in here, pull up, slip stitch, half double. And it is a little tricky to like change the grip, because from now I'm holding it over here while I'm fishing it out and doing the slip stitch. But when I'm going over here to do the half double, I hold the fabric totally different. Then I'm holding it a little bit with the fingers here that my pinky is helping support, and then I loosen it up and just turn everything over. So that it's a little bit different in holding techniques also. I like to use this hand. I like to hold what I'm doing as a support it's somehow making it easier for my hands to work it like this. So slip stitch and half double, and we're almost done with this part. The slip stitch, because you can tell if you have figured out how my color or the corners look now with the two. You see that here we have a corner, but we need to fasten this middle part off first. So I'm gonna go in the stitch and make my first half double crochet in the corner, and that will be where I do my last slip stitch, and then I'm gonna go in and do a regular half double crochet in the corner. That's where so there is one last slip stitch there. From now on I am going to do half double crochets all the way around this row, and I'm gonna just go half double crochets, one in each from now on. So when I end up here in the back or the bottom of the slipper where the rounds starts, I'm not gonna corner that. This is end of increases. From now on there's decreases. So I'm doing one in each, half doubles all the way around. And from now on I'm not a cooking show, so I'm gonna try and speed this up a little bit so that I can show you. See, here is the 2 in 1, but I'm gonna put one in each and just continue. Because there is a little bit of special stitch on the top side from now on. So half doubles all the way around. I hope that the slip stitch seam thing made sense. You can always pause, rewind, and such, and I hope it shows what I'm doing, that you can see somewhat clearly what I'm doing. But now we're coming up on this middle or this seam part here, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna find the corners. Here's one corner and there's the other corner, right? We know where they are at. So here's the second stitch of the corner there, and here's the second, or the first stitch here and the second stitch there. And in between there and there, which is in between the 2 stitches on that corner and the 2 stitches on that corner, I will be making 2 half double 2 together. Well, 1 half, how do you say? You say half double 2 together, I think. So that's the stitch just before. I'm gonna remove the needle because, yeah, so I'm gonna yarn over, insert my hook, pull up a loop, and then I'm gonna jump over to the other side and I'm gonna go in there and I'm gonna yarn over, and then I'm gonna go in there. So I will have 5 loops on my hook. The loop I had, the yarn over, the first one I pulled through, yarn over, and then I pulled up a loop again. Now I'm going to yarn over and pull through all 5 of these. Fairly simple. I'm going to do it again. Okay, because I am not making this easy for myself or for you. So yarn over, insert, pull up a loop, yarn over, and then you go over to the other side here and you insert and pull up a loop. 5 loops on my hook, yarn over and pull through all of them. Okay, and from now on we're doing half doubles all the way around until we come back here, and I'll show you how to continue from here on. Let's see there. If you feel that wool is too warm for you, then of course you can use other types of yarn. I live in Sweden. We have long cold winters and snow, so wool is preferred for the climate here. But of course you can use other types of yarn. I would recommend that if you use a yarn that is slippery to walk on, or that the yarn you're using combined with the floors you have, you could put something on the bottom, like sewing some pieces of well, I know that there is pre-cut like soles you can sew on, but just like any little type of scrap fabric could be sewn onto the bottom of the heel and the toe to get a little bit more grip, because slipping and falling is not nice. I've heard of people using hot glue to make little like dots on the soles of the feet of socks and slippers to make it less slippery. Reminds me of socks you buy for kids that has little like rubbery dots underneath, and I think that there is some type of, it's not a glue, but it's similar, that you actually have for that purpose, to make less slippery socks, that you put them on as dots. But hot glue apparently also works. I don't know how long they wear and if they are washable and all of that, but you can always try. So now we're back here at the, I wouldn't say beginning, but at the middle on top, and here is where we have the 2 stitches together. So I'm gonna go and make one more half double crochet, because what I'm gonna do now is the same as I did before. I'm gonna yarn over and I'm gonna insert on this side of the 2 together from the previous round, and pull up a loop, and then I'm gonna yarn over and then go on the other side and pull up a loop. So I get the same 5 on my hook and pull through all of them. So what you get is basically hugging the 2 from before with 2, and I'm going to continue with this type of hugging on the top, but I'm going to continue doing half double crochets for another round here. So I'm hoping that this is a pattern you feel like you want to try, that makes someone happy, because the colors of this yarn makes me happy, and I believe that I have figured out a pattern that is fairly easy. There's not a lot of difficult steps. The sewing it, or the stitching it together here on the top, of course, is a little bit tricky until you get a hang of it. But it's really easy to change sizes. You can easily make them as big or as small as you want. Just measure on your foot to see that this part here is a height where you're comfortable, so it's not too tight on your foot. And also you can close this all the way up here and make more rounds up with the foot to get it up your calf or how long you want it. And also you don't have to continue increasing here, because it is a bit of a larger or wider opening, and if you keep increasing you will get even an even wider sock, and you might not want that. So you can just like make it fairly straight. You can of course make kid size, and it's pretty fast to do these. You can do them in a couple of hours if you have peace and quiet around you and don't have to focus on other things, which I rarely get to do. So the easiest way for me is doing this, the cooking show method, and having pieces prepared, because otherwise I don't know if I could pull this off in a timely manner. We are almost here at the two together from previous row, and that's where I'm gonna be making another two together. So you see here you have the two being hugged by the next two, and we're gonna hug the next two. So I've yarned over, insert my hook, pull up one, yarn over, insert my hook and pull up one, 5 on my hook, pull through all 5. So pretty easy so far, right? It is going to be a little bit trickier to do the decreases in the toe, a little bit depending on, it's not difficult, it's just not that what I'm showing might differ a little bit from how yours is going to turn out, just because it's different amount of stitches on every row depending on how many rows or the thickness of the yarn and whatnot. So if you have an even number of stitches on these rows, you might have to think a bit one way, and if you have uneven number of stitches, the decreases might be in another way. I'm gonna try and explain it as best as I can. It's not that difficult, it's just that I can't make like it fits for all types, because of course your stitch count is gonna make that it like different, you know. It's a variable depending on how big the size of foot you have, how thick the yarn you're using, how many stitches is on the row. but I'm gonna do my best to make it as easy as possible for you to follow the instructions, because it's really just one thing you have to think about, and that's where the middle seam is that we've already started with the decreases, because you want that centered all the way through the decreases. And now we're back here, so yarn over, insert, pull up a loop, yarn over, insert, and pull up a loop, 5, pull through all. So this middle row here that is forming with the V's, because it's like upside down V's, you want that to be followed. You have the braided seam together and these V's, and you want them to continue down, to be lined up. I'll show you here that they are lined up all the way down to the top, but you can also see that there is decreases because we have a tip, and it just, what I'm trying to explain is whether the increases, like how close to this middle seam your decreases end up, so that you get them to line up properly. And that's where I was. So I'm just gonna go on here and half double crochet my way around this again. I have done 4 of these increases here. I have done 3 rows. I know that for the other one I did, I have 6 rows. So I'm gonna pause here. This cooking show should have prepared better, but I'm gonna do the rows needed to get to the 6 rows before decreasing, because it's probably gonna be boring here now. So I'll see you back here just now. Okay, let's continue this cooking show. I have done the rows I wanted for the length I needed, and I have done the front middle part here, and I'm on the way here back to the sole of the slipper. And next step from here, I'm just gonna make one more, I think I'm happy with. I have, here is my middle where I started, and I like to try and do changes here on the bottom and the middle. So I'm not going to focus on where the first stitch of the row thing is ending up, because that would be slanted. So I'm just folding it like this. I have had it folded, and I'm finding the middle, and I'm feeling that I'm about at the middle. So from now on, I'm gonna do 2 together like I did, like we've done on the top, but we're gonna alternate. So I'm gonna do 2 together, and then I'm gonna do a regular half double crochet, and then I'm gonna do 2 together and a regular half double crochet, 2 half double crochets together and a half double crochet, 2 half double crochets together, and you must have mastered that stitch when you're done with this, because there is a couple of 2 togethers. So 2 half double crochets together and a half double crochet. So So here is where the tricky part gets, depending on how your stitch count is and all of that, because you want these two to still be two together in the middle. And looking at it, I have a regular one here and I have 2 stitches here, so I can do them 2 together so that I still alternate them, and I still do the half doubles 2 together here on the middle. Okay, so that means I have 2 together 2 times in a row. If I had had 1 stitch left, I would have done a half double and then the 2 together. So here might be different depending on what it looks for you. But I like to do just a half double after this one, so I don't try to duplicate or replicate, so it's the same on both sides. I don't do that because it's gonna change every row anyway, or it can change depending on how many stitches you have. So 2 together here. I have a little bit of a splittage in the yarn, but that's fine. Some yarns are trickier than others, and I talked a little bit about that this yarn can be splitting, and it's because it's fairly loosely spun. You can see that it's like, it's not that twisty, it's not like really tight together. When you just unwind it a little bit, you can easily see that it's, you know, gaping holes. So it's not that big of a deal. I have no problem working with the yarn, really. All types of yarn have the, not all, maybe not the, what are they called, roving type yarns. They don't split because that's just like one big strand, but other types of yarn that is stranded or plied, or yeah, they can all just mess with you a bit. So use the yarn you like to work with. But I'm gonna just continue. Oh, it's supposed to be 2 together there. Alternating 1 and 2 together. And that will make a peaky toe closure. It will make it kind of pointy. So where I'm coming up here now, that's where I want the 2 together to be. So in this case, I put a single there because I didn't look, and I have a double there, but I'm looking at it. I could put 2 together. That means I have 3 2 together. This time around, I'm just going to put 1 and then do the 2 together here on the middle where I want it. So you just have to dare the flexibility of changing, and then a single on the next one, and then 2 together. Don't be scared. Like, it's not that difficult. You just have to look at your stitches and see, do I have 1 or 2 or 3 stitches until I get to that middle part, and place a double or 2 together if you can, or just do regular single half doubles. If you feel that this closing part is too tight, then you can do 2 half doubles and then 2 together, and 2 half doubles and 2 together. If you feel like you like a less tight top, or it will tighten up, it just won't go as fast. Like here it's kind of going from this wide to fast quick. But if you don't want it that way, if you want it more of a, well, not as tight, like you might have toes that stick in all sorts of directions. I'm not judging. All my toes are pretty much the same, so I like it when it's kind of just closed off, but not everyone's like me. So, and here I'm gonna do 2, there's 1 half double, well, there's 2 together, and then there's 1 half double, and then in this one I'm doing half double, and then 2 together. So 1, 2 together, and it is getting tighter as you go. I'm fiddling a little bit to get my stitches in. I'm doing 1 in this one and 2 together here, and there's less and less stitches for every row. And here we got 1 and 2 together. That's my secret recipe, I guess. Yeah. I like cooking shows. I wouldn't say would like to be a part of a cooking show. Like, I like cooking, but I don't think the competitive side of a lot of cooking shows is my cup of tea. So, and I'm not a tea drinker either, so I'm sorry to offend any tea drinkers. I just never learned to drink tea. I am more of a coffee person, and I want milk in my coffee. I have seen several YouTubers receiving tea bags. I would love to receive stuff. Don't get me wrong, I just, it would be a waste of tea bags to send them to me. So, here was another 2 together. And now, when I am this far up at the top, trying to close this together, I'm just gonna do 2 togethers. No half doubles in between, just because I want to get this last part here 2 together, and I'm turning it, and then let's see, there's a stitch, dropping stitches, and 2 together, and I'm kind of like keeping it flat but folding it. And here we have another 1 and 2, and here's where it's getting really tricky, because I'm pretty much like going in the same stitches. I'm gonna be able to fit in 1 more 2 together. I don't know if you can tell, but there's the stitch I have here on my hand, and I see 1, 2, 3 stitches, so 4 stitches with this one I have. That's what I have worked my way up to. I have 4 stitches left, so I'm gonna do 1 more 2 together just because I can. You could definitely just cut here and fasten off. I'm just doing it because I can. But we have closed this top off. There's not much more to close off. So I'm just gonna pull through all of this, and then I'm just gonna chain one basically and pull it tight. So this is what it looks like now. I have a pointy toe, and you would get less of a point if you would fasten off earlier than my extra. This part probably would disappear if you do one less of the 2 togethers that I did with the 4 stitches I had left. There we have one, and we have the friend for it, and they are slightly different in the colors. As you can tell, this has the orange, but the colors weren't perfectly matching up. This had orange to start with, and yeah, they are very similar in the pattern anyway. If you do it like that, it's more similar. But these are my Hexi slippers. I now have 2 pairs of sewing in some ends. This part that I just showed you, I'm gonna frog it and use the yarn for something else. The ones I had previously showed you, I still have those, so now I have 3 pairs of Hexi slippers, and these are about the same size. Probably these are a little bit smaller than this, but I forgot to mention, I talked about these as a size 41 to 43-ish male EU sizing. I would say these are like 38, 39 for a female, and maybe these are more like 38. So I know that sizing is a bit tricky, but I hope it helps you a little bit in determining how big or small you want to make them. I hope you try this pattern. I hope you let me know if you try this pattern. I have an Instagram where you can tag me, post pictures. I would love to see if you try and make some Hexi slippers of yourself. But yeah, I am very, very grateful that you stuck with me. If you've seen this far, then thank you very, very much. Please leave a comment, subscribe, like, share, try the pattern. If this is something that a lot of you like, I can write it down. I just haven't gotten to it. My time is limited, and I want to make great content. I'd like to show you more of what I'm doing and share this great hobby that we all have, because I hope that's why you're here, that you're loving crochet and yarn and everything related to it, because that's what I love. So thank you very much, and bye bye for now.